Hello and welcome to the Invisible Cabaret podcast. I'm Ferrero Rochelle.
And I'm Rosie Verbose. Back in pre-corona times, we began Invisible Cabaret, a variety entertainment troupe devoted to stripping away stigma surrounding mental health. We performed in venues across London and we're looking forward to our first small tour of the UK.
Sadly, the pandemic had other ideas.
So we adapted our mission to form the Invisible Cabaret podcast. We talk to all sorts of artists about what creativity means for their mental health, thus making the invisible visible. See what we did there?
Please note, we at Invisible Cabaret are not mental health professionals. If you're affected by any of the issues raised in this programme or are struggling with your mental health in any way, we've made a list of resources for you on our website, www.invisiblecabaret.org/podcast/resources. Yes, welcome to the Invisible Cabaret podcast. Welcome to 2021. It's so good to have you here as always. This week, we are joined by the fantastic musician, opera singer, all-round great egg, and one of the top 5 people to get me through 2020, Bria Lovegrove.
Oh, what a lovely thing to be able to say. I love it.
It's so kind. Truly the sweetest. Best way to kick off 2021.
It's true. Bria and I met in our muggle job back in the day, and we recently reconnected. So, yeah, literally in 2020. And have both
the year of
been,
reconnection, yeah.
Yeah, and have just occasionally met at each other, just going, blah, 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 blah. Things are happening, help.
Quick 5-minute, like, scream cries and then depart.
Yeah, and then run away.
Yeah.
God, if that isn't the most 2020 thing.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. Bria Lovegrove, your performance name has previously been Bria Kelly, but you're now married.
Yes.
And Bria Lovegrove is your married name. So just in case anybody was like, I've seen a performer called Bria.
There's not a million. Yeah. There's not a million opera singers named Bria, I can tell you that now. So, yes.
I've always wanted to ask an opera singer, what made you want to be an opera singer? And how did you realise that you could do opera?
That's honestly one of the most frequent questions that people ask is like, how did you, like, opera's for old people, how do you get into this? I found it the way a lot, well, I'm not going to generalise, but quite a few people that I know have found it, which is I started in musical theatre, loved musical theatre, but whenever I was getting roles, when I was singing in high school and stuff, I just sounded really, really old. So I was getting like the Mrs. Potts, or I was getting like character roles like Mrs. Peru in The Music Man, where I have to do this like horrid Irish accent. Like I cannot even try to explain to you how bad it was. But you know, I was doing like Gilbert and Sullivan's like once I kind of started to understand opera a little bit, we were doing small operettas, so like The Mikado and Gondoliers, where I was still getting these really old ladies. And part of it is that I do kind of have a bit more of an older sense than I am. But the singing was always just, I sounded like a 40-year-old woman trying to like wobble her way through with her like sambuca at the bar. You know what I mean? It was really bad. So one of the teachers when I was probably in 11th grade, probably like 10th grade, so like, 15, 16, said she went to Yale for opera, and she said, hey, just come into a practice room with me really quick. She wasn't even my regular voice teacher or like my regular music teacher at all. She taught theory there. And she said, you should try to sing this. And she was like, just like have a little go. And I sang it, and for the first time I sang something and I was like, wow, that's easy. And she was like, yeah, you're an opera singer. And I was like, okay, done. Yeah, it's a lot of patience that ended up getting me to getting through a plethora of majors for an undergraduate degree that ended up resulting in a music degree, and then deciding to do a master's here. So it's essentially someone hearing it and going, you should do this, and you go, oh, okay.
And then you sort of end up looking into it because you're good at it rather than necessarily So it wasn't sort of that you liked opera first and then thought, oh, maybe I could do that. It was a bit more, well, I'm good at it, so I'll look into it. Is that the right way around?
Well, a little bit, yeah. It's more of like, I didn't know a ton about opera. I did not come from a musical family. So some people, go into it because they love it, but some people just don't know it. And then they say, this is why singing is so kind of hard for you right now. And then it was kind of like, not only, you're good at it, but it's more of like, oh, this is easier for me, which is kind of a weird, I guess, thing to say. Even now, singing something like musical theatre or anything on the radio is like, it's so it's just so unnatural in my voice. Most people can like pick up an acoustic guitar and play something, and I sound like I just can't. It does not sound good, to the point that sometimes we're in the car and Joe's like, please stop. Please stop. Sia is not your truth.
What? Very few people's truth.
Amazing.
To be fair.
It's fascinating. I think that's absolutely fascinating. I really would like to talk to you about your studies. We always send out a list of questions to our prospective podcast guests. And one of the questions is, how has creativity and your art form helped you with your mental health? And Bria's response was, no, no, no. I think it's very important that we touch on that. And it ties back in to your dissertation and to the relationship between mental health and opera performance. So would you mind walking us through that a little bit?
Okay. When I started, I went to the teacher that I TA'd for in my undergrad, she's one of those minds that is just so brilliant when it comes to music and when it comes to feminism. And I said, I want to do something touching on just like, why does every woman in opera die? And this is like a topic that has kind of been hot over the past few years, of people being like, should we still be finding this entertaining? Should we be taking this, and changing the endings? Should we be reworking things and stuff like that? It ended up evolving because I moved to the UK alone. I didn't know anyone. The two worlds between the United States conservatoire systems, which we call them conservatory, not conservatoire, and the UK is just so vastly and wildly different, but so similar in certain ways. And I just started to kind of notice the anxiety and things that everyone was dealing with, but really trying to push under the carpet. And part of it is that in the UK, you guys just don't talk about things as much, or as straightforward, or as bluntly, or just be like, no, I'm stressed, I can't do that. Like, nobody does that. And not to say that that always happens in the US, obviously, or that always happens in conservatoire there, because there's also a standard there, but it was just very different, because it was very always be okay. You're always okay. So after my first year of studying, I started to find myself falling into some really, really bad habits. And the autumn of my second year, I was doing tons of auditions. I got auditions all over the world. I was, on a plane at least once a week, flying back and forth, trains over to Europe. And not only was it really exhausting, but I was so broke, because I do not come from a rich family, so I needed to work always. And that's a whole thing. There's
a whole other thing, I believe
within this art form. And so I was really broke. I was in Paris, staying in a friend's house on her couch, and was literally having to do like €3 a day. I was like, how can I stretch it? To eat and to get around and stuff like that. It was really, really tough. And when I came back, that was kind of the tipping point for me going, oh no, screw this. Because I came back and everyone was like, oh yes, of course, like, you were singing this audition. I'm like, yeah, but I'm fucking starving. Like, I'm literally so tired. My body cannot keep up. I can't do this. And that was kind of the turning point where I was like, wait, why aren't we talking about this stuff? Why aren't we talking about the fact that so many of us are broke, but yet, we finish a performance and it's expected that you're going to go to the bar and you're going to have multiple drinks and you're going to have no issue paying for it and you're not going to be stressed, and then we're going to go out to brunch tomorrow, and then we have to get to this rehearsal, and that, like, why are we not talking about the fact that, like, I know I'm not the only person that's struggling here. And then I started doing some research that then ended up shifting my dissertation to what it ended up being in its final entity, which was the long-term effects of the repeated portrayal of tragedy on young opera singers, and also how the conservatoire kind of does that structurally, and also, yeah, just kind of how rough it is. The study that I found that really like blew my mind, Help Musicians UK did a study in 2016 called Can Music Make You Sick? And they did something like 2,000 musicians, and they weren't all classical musicians, but a good chunk of them were. And they ended up finding that like 71% of the musicians said that they struggle with anxiety, and like 68.5% struggle with depression. And this is like not news. This is just recent. So like we've always had composers that dealt with severe bouts of depression. Beethoven, Tchaikovsky, Rachmaninoff, Berlioz, Glinka, Bruckner, like literally so many. Also note that all of those are men. Like, and this isn't just saying like, yep, some of us deal with anxiety. 71%, that is astonishing. That is a call for help from so many people. And then a couple of years later, I want to say it was 2017 or something, Classical Music Magazine did another study that said that 82% of classical musicians think that there's gaps in the mental health provisions from both their institutions or those that are like currently hired by, professional orchestras and stuff like that, which is wild. And a third of those people talked about using alcohol as a coping mechanism.
Wow.
That's a lot of people. Only 18% of those people actually knew that there was services in place that they could take advantage of. Both of these studies kind of go through how it's a traumatic working condition that you're kind of supposed to think is normal. You work incredibly antisocial hours. You end up becoming your art form. People only know and care about you because of how well you sang the other day. So you don't really have a sense of self. So your identity is lost. You can't plan for the future. You don't have sick pay. You're normally exhausted. You don't have maternity or paternity leave, parental leave, anything like that. So, but we're just supposed to think that's normal. And if we ever have issues, if you do have any sort of notable mental illness or mental ill health in any way, shape, or form, it is still seen as, oh, well, they're a bit hard to work with. So everything is hush hush. In the place where I studied, the Mental Health Awareness Day consisted of them sending an email that said, "There's cupcakes in the SU." That was it.
Okay.
That sounds about right. It just massively reminds me of our cabaret act. We have a lip sync act that we have affectionately titled The Tortured Artist Lip Sync. And we cover 3 iconic artists throughout history. It's Judy Garland, Marilyn Monroe, and the most recent iteration is Kurt Cobain, but also Courtney Love, about, how it's normalized. Firstly, it's normal that you expect, oh, you're an artist, well, of course you're going to be tortured, you're going to be damaged, like you use your difficulties to fuel your art, but also that it's glamorized, and it's something like Kurt Cobain is this absolute iconic, oh my God, wasn't he so amazing? Wasn't he so brilliant? He was chronically depressed. Like he was so unwell and ended up taking his own life. And that is glamorized. And he's still put on a pedestal, and his experience and his life is still considered, one of the greats in music history. And it's heartbreaking. It's devastating. Nobody says, actually, do you think it's right that we're talking about the experience of this man and thinking, oh, isn't that just, what it is to be an artist? Oh, poor him, but didn't he make great music? Like, nobody is thinking about that.
I think the frustrating bit is like you said, it's really glamorized. So people would see that I was getting really good auditions, and that's great. And that's, yes, in theory, if I were to be like, yes, I get to jet set and go here and do this, and I got asked to do a concert in Leipzig, and now I have to go. That's great, but people only want to see the glamorized bits that they want to see.
The Instagram highlights reel.
Yeah, exactly. And they want to see that, you know, oh, well, she's going here, she's going here, and look at, oh, your pretty dresses, oh, your makeup. And I'm like, okay, how did I transport that makeup and that dress? I did it on a train. You know, I stayed on someone's couch. I didn't sleep beforehand. I had to warm up in like a bubble, like a glass of water with a fucking straw. You know, it's just, they don't want to know about the fact that you're really, really struggling for money, that when you aren't doing gigs, you have to go home or like put yourself into more debt to go out for drinks with people, or, you know, you don't get to enjoy the cities that you're going to. You get to one place, grab a lunch, and then you have to get back on the train.
I want to ask you specifically, Bria, has that meant that, have you lost some of your love for opera? How has it affected your mental health, and how did you manage to keep a hold of your mental health while you were doing all this?
Well, I didn't, to be honest.
Fair play.
That's the answer. That's,
yeah,
you know.
Respect for the honesty.
I think still I'm unpacking things that I'm like, oh wow, I can't believe I fucking thought that. Come on, you know. And kind of like sometimes things will come into my head, or I talk to certain people, and I'm just kind of like, oh fuck, like wow, yeah, I would have been there. I would have been doing that, and it's just it's wild. I love the physical feeling that I get when I sing opera specifically. I love unpacking the characters, however unfeminist they may be, because a lot of them are based on real people, or sometimes if they aren't based on real people, that's even more interesting to me, because you kind of think, how did someone create this person like this, and why did they do that within their own life, stuff like that. There's still bits that I do really enjoy and wish that I could do, but when it comes to the profession, when it comes to the actual act of performance, when it comes to the other people that are currently involved in performance, and the way that both the conservatoires and opera companies are moving this forward without major change, I have sort of fallen out of love with it, unfortunately. So I can love the music, but I don't love the rest of it, which is it's really heartbreaking.
Yeah, it is. Circling back just for a moment, I wanted to ask you about the stat that you mentioned, that was a third of the people who felt that there were gaps in the mental health provision in conservatoires said that they self-medicated with alcohol. And I just wanted to talk to you about that, because I know that was your experience, really. So if you wouldn't mind talking to us about that.
Yeah. Well, that was slightly different in that in my undergrad, to be honest, I smoked a lot of weed, and I was never getting really high. I was just, come to find out, I was evening myself out / eliminating my anxiety. Even just to say the sentence, I have anxiety, has taken me to 2020. Wow. It has taken a long time for me to even say that, let alone say it's not just anxiety, it is OCD. So yeah, I was subconsciously medicating for anxiety by smoking. I moved to the UK and obviously had no way to do that. And then drinking culture came. Now, in the States, drinking, obviously you can't drink until you're 21. Obviously almost everyone does. But it's completely different. It wasn't like I didn't drink, but I definitely did not drink as much as these English people could. I could not keep up. But then throughout the year, everyone's like, oh, well, it's Tuesday, let's go down and have a drink. And a drink turns into 3 bottles. And it got to the point where I was like, guys, I've got to go home. But people would, it's not even just FOMO, like people would hook each other up with gigs, having those drinks.
I was just going to say that it's the networky schmoozy element, isn't it? That's the kicker here.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. That's another thing that I talked about in my dissertation, that was talked about in the studies too, is that the relationships that you build when you're working, you know, because you work such antisocial hours and you work so many hours and you have so many rehearsals, is that you kind of sometimes forget that those are contractual relationships. And, you know, you leave studying or you leave this gig and you won't talk to those people again. But you've probably bared your heart and soul out to them over a bottle of Prosecco on a Tuesday night. But, and that is traumatic to people. And it really creates this like repetitive, heartbreaking culture of nobody knows who I am because I never work with the same people. Or if I do, we work together for rehearsal Tuesday, Thursday, and then we have a gig on Friday, Saturday, and then we're done. I won't see him for months.
It's just baffling to me that the institutions themselves aren't preparing people for this, because all of these institutions are made up of people who have been through the exact same thing and know exactly what the industry is like and know exactly how brutal everything is.
But that's the thing. If they dealt with it and if they got through it, then you should be able to as well. You need to figure it out.
It's enough to make you very angry. Like, I feel a little like my blood's a bit fizzy.
Just makes me feel sad. Yeah.
It's not just conservatoires where that's the case. You know, it's across the board. It's across the board in training programs for emerging artists. And look at how we've been treated this year. You know, all these people get absolutely destroyed at drama school and uni and then go into an industry that is going to, you know, chew you up and spit you out. And yet, even if you do make it in inverted commas, even if you do get all the way and you end up performing in something amazing, something huge can happen in the world and you will be dropped like a stone and nobody will care. And you'll have to, I say nobody will care, I'm, you know, using hyperbole, but you then have to try and fend for yourself. And, you know, you're dealing with so many conflicting emotions about should I stay in this career? You know, I love this career and I want to make a go of it, but, you know, who cares about me right now? And then you're also trying to think about practical things like, oh my God, I've got to put a roof over my head and I've got to eat. And also the majority of jobs are in London, so I'm going to have to live and work in some, you know, low paid muggle job to make ends meet in one of the most expensive city in the country. It's just brutal. And I completely understand and empathise with the amount of performers that are struggling at the moment.
It's a really, really tough time. And, you know, I think it's just horrible. And in so many art forms, so many respects, you know, it's very much a society that we've created within the arts that you're either smashing it, and smashing it is like getting every single audition and you're doing all this highbrow stuff. You've got a new agent, they're putting you out for this, blah, blah, or you're a failure. There's no middle ground. You are either fully employed doing this art form or you are failing. And that is just not true. And it just kind of puts us in this position as artists that you're always auditioning, right? How many times have you heard you're always auditioning, which literally is the feeding sentence for here's some fucking anxiety on a plate, eat it up. You have to always be perfect. That was something that really, really broke my internal record and really set my OCD off, was being always auditioning and having to always be perfect. So you can't be sick. You would go into the coaching and be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I have a cold. This is before Corona, obviously. You know, I'm sorry, I have a little bit of a cold, it's okay. I don't normally sound like this. Do you want me to do that? I might just skip the top notes because you can't have an off day. A big thing for me too was when I stopped singing, I was like, okay, I finally have to get some dental work done. It took me 2 extra years to get my wisdom teeth out because I couldn't be not singing for 6 to 8 weeks. I couldn't afford to not sing. I have quite intense endometriosis, and there would be days where I would just be sleeping all day. I couldn't physically get in, or I would get in and I would be like, I need to sit, and I would do coaching sitting down because my stomach was in so much pain, but I couldn't afford to not go to the coaching. So I couldn't afford to get the testing, because if the testing proved that I needed a surgery, which is now the case, then I couldn't be out of singing for that long. So, and there's so many people in situations like this, but we just don't talk about it. And it's wild.
You've really set my cogs going, Bria. To bring it back to what we were talking about a minute ago with the tortured artists thing, I mean, Marilyn Monroe, lots of people don't know, but she had endometriosis as well. So, and meanwhile, she's being squeezed into these outfits that people are sewing her into to make sure that they are seductive enough and all this kind of thing. I guess.
And what was her reputation? She was difficult to work with, you know?
Yeah, and was self-medicating, partly because of mental pain and partly physical, and therein the twain shall always meet. Yeah.
Oh my God, it is literally, I'm so cross right now. I just feel so angry. We've not learned anything since the 50s, you know? It's ridiculous.
My question with all of this is, why? But more specifically, why? What is it that we as humans want things, as you said a minute ago, if it's been difficult for us, we're going to make damn sure it's difficult for the next people coming up? Is that part of it? Is it that we actually want our artists to have some platonic ideal of perfection about them? We want to think that they are these kind of divine robots that are always auditioning, always perfect, always on point, always virtuously drinking but not too much, eating but just the right amount. You know, is that some kind of weird kind of like military school for the perfect type mentality? It makes me think of sort of ballet standards and, you know, those kind of classical arts. Same with drama schools a lot of the time. All these things seem to have an element of if you can't stand the heat, get out the kitchen, but also the heat is only for the perfect and essentially immortal beings.
Mm-hmm. I think it is a bit of, well, I had to do it, so in order, you know, you have to do it as well. I think it is part of that, but I think part of it too is no matter the art form, sculptors, singers, whatever, you're an entertainer. Even if you are a painter and maybe you aren't a performing artist, you are a performer, because people are engaging in the art. You know, if a guy works in insurance from 8 to 5, he's going to the theatre or he's going to the art gallery because he wants to escape life. You know, we want to divulge into something that isn't in our normal day-to-day life. So we want it to be extreme. We want it to be extravagant. We want it to be glamorous and glorious and things that aren't in our, you know, Piccadilly line journey in the morning, you know. In classical music, we also have this like straitjacket of what this perfection is. You know, we don't have many people of colour in the operatic world. And I've been told we almost didn't cast you because we knew that you were gay and we didn't want to put you in the situation of having to be in love with a man on stage. And I just went, that's my fucking decision to make, not yours. It is just consistently broken. And I think it's one of those things where it's like, if we broke it all down and built it back up today, I'm sure it would be nicer, but we have some old crows still in the nest that want it to be what they think is normal.
My question is there a light at the end of the tunnel? Is there some good we can glean from this conversation? We might have some listeners who are just starting their journey as performers. What's the good thing that we can take away? I think it's smaller companies. I think it is that there are more people trying to find a middle ground between you're an absolute starlet or you're failing. And, you know, the absolute burst of the fringe scene that's happened in recent times. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not all doom and gloom. You know, it is a frustrating topic. I think we really screwed the lid off of it. You know, I think that there's a good base there. You know, if we strip away the profession and we focus on the art, you know, in classical music we have some really fucking beautiful music, and music that, you know, a lot of people don't realize that they hear every single day on commercials, that they hear in the background of their BBC drama. You know, it is everywhere, and these people are getting employed. There's not that many places at the table, but there is a table. And if we could just put a few leaves in the table and make it a bit longer, that would be probably great. For someone that deals with, you know, OCD and perfectionism and stuff like that, it's probably not the best, you know, situation to put yourself into without tons of tools around you to be able to deal with and take this on, and to have a support system, and just to have the self-understanding and language for your own, you know, your own process, because it's different for each person. And, you know, we could sit here and chat until the cows come home, but how someone else is going to deal with these things, and, you know, they could have the same exact diagnoses as me, you, Sue, or Sal, and they're going to deal with it completely differently, and they're going to feel different things about it. And that's okay too. And if we just keep, you know, if while we are active within our art form, that we promote that safe space, that we promote therapy is okay, therapy is normal, you aren't a pain in the ass, take a sick day, screw them. You know, if we keep, you know, it's kind of like the idea of like families, if we keep putting good people into the world, then the world will eventually be a better place for the kids of the future. It's the same thing. If we keep showing up, if you show up for yourself and you show up for the art form, and you say, hey guys, just because she can't do the B flat today doesn't mean that she, and someone has to just say it. We can't just sit here and like be like, Someone has to say, it's okay, don't worry about it. Whether if you are a person that has a bit more standing, if you're the conductor that says, you don't have to sing the top today, help people. Don't let people constantly fend with themselves. We have to support each other. So it's a bit of everyone doing their part, and a bit of everyone kind of creating that space that we want to be working in. But the first step is that we have to acknowledge that we want to work in a different space.
Well, new year, new normal. When things, you know, when venues start opening up again, we're in an unprecedented, there's that word again, we are in an incredible position. I've cancelled myself there. We're in an incredible position to be able to affect change in a way that we haven't been before, perhaps. So that's a very, very challenging and inspiring place to pause the conversation. And hopefully, as the months go on, we'll be able to really kind of eke out those points and think about the creating world we want to be contributing to. So it's you've set the bar very high, Bria. This pivots beautifully.
Absolutely. We are now going to be talking about what we're grateful for this week. Bria?
I am grateful for my health, first and foremost, my family's health, that everyone is okay. We were actually just talking about this today, like, it's been a really, really tough time, but I have a very amazing and beautiful wife that takes everything that I throw at her, bless her. And I have a very, very cute spaniel that also either comes and consoles me when I cry, or, you know, gets me up to go for a walk when I'm having one of those really low days. He's just like, Mom, we have to go, please. You know, so very grateful to, they know, oh my God, we don't deserve them. Yeah, so just for them and our health, and for everything moving forward, for the year to be fabulous.os, please.
Lovely stuff. Rosie V.
Well, we're coming back after the holidays, and very simply, I'm grateful for nice food and having time, social time in the kitchen. That has been the big thing that's made this Groundhog Day holiday feel slightly different. Just being a little bit more indulgent, I guess, with the meals that we've cooked, and really taken, I don't necessarily mean in terms of content, but more in terms of like the time we've taken over them. We've been like, yeah, we'll try that recipe. Yes, it's a 5-hour simmer. Let's go for it. You know, go big or go stay home. So that's what we've ended up doing.
Go big or go in the living room.
Yeah. So I think that's probably what I'm grateful for, other than, you know, the manifold blessings of a warm house and hot water and all the other things that I'm particularly grateful for in these winter months. Ferrero, Rochelle?
I'm grateful that I didn't start 2021 with a hangover.
Hey.
I did drink. I did drink quite a bit. But I woke up this morning, well, because we're recording this on New Year's Day. I woke up this morning feeling fantastic. So fantastic that I blitzed the house.
Oh my
It was
God.
all, you know, full of beer cans and things. I know. My housemate came downstairs and was like, what are you doing? Are you okay?
But please
How is
don't
this
stop.
happening?
Whatever you do, don't stop.
It looks amazing, but are you well? Yeah. And I don't know what I read recently, there's like this, I literally read it this morning actually, there's a myth, an old wives' tale, that you shouldn't do a load of laundry on New Year's Day because it signifies like washing away of family ties and like washing away the people that you love, and like people could die. And it's like very, it was something I saw online, and it's very dramatic. And that was whilst my washing was going, and I was like,
Great. Good.
Okay,
rude.
great. But I've decided to ignore it, and instead I'm thinking, I've started 2021. I've gone downstairs. I've done a good clean. I woke up feeling refreshed. I'm like, yeah, this is how my 2021 is going to go. I'm going to, manifest it into the world. I know you don't like that word, Ros, but I'm using it.
No, you go.
Manifesting it into the world, and I'm enjoying it.
I tell you what,
I'm
happy to hear you're manifesting, especially if it's anti-manifesting. Some shit like that. What's that? No.
Right.
No.
There we go.
We're removing that curse.
It was very upsetting. Yeah. Thank you.
The universe knew that you deserved an easy and an energetic start to the year, so you were graced with that.
Yes.
There we go.
And I feel good with it. So yeah, that's what I'm grateful for.
We have had another contribution from a lovely lady called Kaylee, who is a poet and mental health nurse. She says that she is grateful for spending extra time with her parents because they're all working from home. That's a nice little silver lining.
That is nice. We've also heard from our lovely Miss Mustard Seed, who said she's grateful. I mean, she's pretty much a superhero at this point. She's grateful that she's officially become ventilator trained.
Oh,
what a gal. Thank you so much, Miss Mustard Seed, for everything you're doing. You're amazing. And we've also heard from Didi La Femme, who is grateful for a weekly Zoom call with her family in California, and that she usually only speaks to them once a year. Oh, isn't that lovely?
love that.
Bria, it has been an absolute joy having you on the podcast. Before we let you go off to your life, your spaniel and your beautiful wife, do you have anything you'd like to promote? Do you have anything that it doesn't have to be your own thing, it could be anything at all.
If anyone is ever feeling stressed, just need someone to talk to at a point of crisis, please, please, please text 85258. Shout UK is a free texting line where crisis counsellors, such as me, are on the other line, ready to talk to you, ready to help you de-escalate and find resources that you need. Also, obviously, there's Samaritans and various other things like that. But I think the big message for 2021 is we should all just respect and love ourselves enough to admit when we need to ask someone for help, and that is not an easy thing to do. It's an incredibly, incredibly hard thing to do, you know, in such a hyper-competitive world where, be it artistically, professionally, or just generally, you know, we are kind of programmed to think that, oh, I don't need help, I don't need, and it's okay to just say, even if you start therapy and say, I don't have anything bad happening, you don't need to have something bad happening to start therapy, or, you know, to text helplines, just reach out and say, I just kind of want to have a chat with someone that isn't my mom, someone that is completely disconnected, that I can just really let it all go, and I promise you won't regret it.
Yes. Thank you, Bria. That is a
fabulous
wonderful, what a wonderful shout out. I think that's the perfect way to end our first episode of 2021.
Woohoo. Strap in, lads. I'm excited for what 2021 will hold for us, for the podcast, and for you guys listening. If you would like more Invisible Cabaret, we've got quite a little archive going on now of previous episodes to catch up on. So they're all available on multiple different platforms, but if you go to anchor.fm/invisible-cabaret, you can take your pick and whichever platform you like. We're all on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all the things. So if you're looking for a dash of mental health and burlesque cabaret entertainment, and you're thinking, how the heck do they mix? Oh, my friend, go have a look at our stuff and you'll get an idea.
The things you will find.
Including the aforementioned lip sync trio. Thank you, Bria.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for tuning in, everyone. Be kind to yourselves and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye. This has been the Invisible Cabaret podcast, and thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, please do be sure to share it with a friend and let us know that you've enjoyed it on one of our many socials. We're passionate about stripping away stigma with as many people as possible, and hearing feedback about the things that you and your friends have enjoyed listening to brings us nothing but joy. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter and YouTube. Just search Invisible Cabaret.